Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about buying under 30, and what we mean specifically is, can you buy a house here in DFW when you're under 30 years old? And we kind of want to go into the myths that prevent people from thinking that, and also some loan factors that really help clarify what it takes to be approved.
Yeah, you can do it. You can be under the age of 30 years old and buy a house. I did it, and so I know you can, okay? The number one thing that's most likely holding you back, either whether it's real or whether it's, in your head, is the financial side of purchasing that house, okay? Most of you probably don't think that you can afford to buy your own home. So before we go any further, I'd love to talk about what a lender or a bank is actually going to look at so that we're discussing real things and not just myths and make-believe and fears that you have in your own head, okay? So these are the 5 things that a lender is going to look at. 1, they're going to look at the actual house that you're interested in buying, okay? If you're not looking at, my advice is always to talk with a lender or a bank as early as possible, okay? Mm-hmm. You come talk to us and we'll get you hooked up with the best lender we know. All right, so they're not going to have access to the value of their home yet because we're actually going to find that last, hopefully, okay? They're going to look at your income. How much money is coming into your bank account every single month or every single year, all right? And we're going to need to see documentation of that, all right? They're going to look at your debts, how much money is coming off of the books, all right, before anything's ever said and done, all right? Your credit score, how good are you at repaying back the money that you've borrowed? And then how much cash do you have available to put into a house, okay? None of these exist independent of one another. They're gonna look at everything as a full overview. So you could be good at 3 of these and bad at 2 of these. It doesn't mean that you can't buy a house, all right? I talk to a lot of people that just come up to me, they're like, oh, my credit's awful. And it's like, yeah, it is awful, but you have a ton of cash. Your debts are good, you don't have any debt, and your income's fantastic, and the house you're buying is a great investment. So, these 4 can buoy one of the 5, So, I just want to talk about real things before we get too involved here.
Great, so now we're going to talk about some of the myths that people think one of these will cripple another, causing the whole loan to fall through, when it's not really the case, just like Davis explained.
Yeah.
So number 1 is the stage of life. So people tend to buy in particular stages of life, or at least people perceive that. So one thing to keep in mind is that you can always treat your investment in a house, and you should treat your house like an investment. You've always heard in finance class or your teachers, if you just contribute $100 a month or whatever it is to your savings, to your retirement savings, you'll see that number compound over time, and over the course of 30 years, you're looking at $1 million or whatever it is. But the reality is, you can do that same thing with your home and treat it just like a bank. So whether you're single, engaged, married, you can still buy a house if the finances make sense, if these loan factors add up to be in good condition.
Yeah.
So we encourage you to
I'm going to intervene here,
yeah.
Okay? Because here's my personal take on why I think this stage of life is so difficult for people to get past. I think buying a house is, for most of you, going to be the most emotional investment you ever make, okay?
Yeah.
Most people have a vision coming in, and it sucks because a house is not just it's not just a place that you live, and it's not just an investment, it's both, okay? So that's the emotional side of it. A lot of people have a vision for what they want their house to look like, and there's so many just personal, there's a personal attachment to this investment. You take one stock and you say hey, if you put this money into the stock and I told you it was going to be worth this much, in this number of years, you'd be like, awesome, great, sign me up. And if I told you the same thing with a house, you wouldn't do it, because with any house, you have a whole lot more questions, because you have to live in this place, and you have to raise a family in this place. You have to do whatever you're going to do in a house in that place.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
But so our goal is to look at it in both senses of what it really is, both as an investment and as a place where you're going to be living. Okay. But don't be scared if it doesn't meet your vision. Maybe we need to alter our vision of what you can of when you're going to be able to live in a house, because you may be missing out on an awesome investment.
Great. So a lot of people have kind of gone under this belief, especially held by our parents and older generations, that it takes 20% to purchase a house, 20% cash down. Mm-hmm. I can tell you right now, that's not necessarily the case. No. While 20% down is not a bad thing, it might not be the best for your personal situation. I know me and my fiance right now are looking to buy a house, and we were talking with our lender, Brittany, and we were looking at 5% versus 10% down. And we kind of came to the conclusion that 5% down made the most sense for us because it gave us just a slightly higher mortgage payment, but allowed us to keep a lot of our cash in our pockets for furniture, repairs, and any kind of updates that we wanted to do to the house. Those sorts of things were important to us.
Yeah, less than 10% of the buyers I helped find their home last year put more than 20% down. That's less than 10% of the buyers that bought a house in 2017 put more than 20% cash down.
You can also do 3% down on some conventional loans. So it just kind of depends. There's always things to work out, and that's why we really encourage you to talk with a good lender, talk with us. We can hook you up with one, so that way you know for sure what you're capable of.
Yeah, and let's not most of you are probably interested in two numbers, and those are probably the two numbers that you really need to be interested in, which is one, how much cash do I have to bring to the closing table? Like, what's my initial investment into the home? And then two, what is that monthly payment going to look like? How much is it going to cost for me to continue living in that house?
Right.
Okay? Like, aside from that, if you're comfortable with that initial investment and with the monthly payment, and we find that so many people are they're blown away with how affordable buying a house could be. And for a lot of people, they're just blown, it's because this myth is debunked. They thought that they had to have that much money in order to get that initial investment.
Yeah. And then number 3, the forever home. So people have this preconceived notion that they might have to live in that home forever to make it worth the investment that they put in up front. But in reality, that isn't necessarily the case.
Yeah.
And I know, Davis, you can speak to this personally, right?
Yeah, I can. So I bought a house, and we had one kid, another kid on the way. We were planning on having a huge family. I knew that this house is going to be something that lasted maybe 5 years tops. Okay, it's not going to last that long. It'll only be like a 3.5-year investment, but it was a fantastic investment for me. So personally, just to throw out some numbers, I bought my house in 2014 for $250,000 in Coppell. And this is a time between that time and whenever I'm going to sell it this year. My house today on the open market would fetch close to $330,000 with a likely closing price of $325,000. That's my equity grew $75,000 just by me making that investment up front and then living in it for the 3.5 years. That's money that I would have thrown away had I been renting.
Exactly.
So I wouldn't have made any money doing that.
Yeah, and then lastly, risky investment. We've obviously been talking about this a lot, but just to give you another personal take here, is Kimmy and I are looking at a particular home that we know the value of it, but we also know how much it would cost to lease that current home or a home very similar to it in that area. So the area we find desirable. And so if we're really looking at it, that lease would have run about $20 to $50 a month. Just pretty substantial, but it was a great area, and it's kind of where we wanted to be. It had good community, really close to church. Those sorts of things were important to us. And then we kind of started to look at it. I was like, okay, so that's what it would take to lease a house similar to it, but what would it take to own a house, to own that specific house? And we talked with our lender. We got all our things in order, cash, credit score, debts, all that stuff, and we wanted to find out, and that came out to $2,500 per month. So that difference is very negligible in my mind and in the mind of any savvy investor, especially in real estate, because this is the price for ownership. But what I haven't calculated out is the amount of equity that would be earned in the fact that I have an asset at the end of that life. So when I choose to move in 3 to 5 years, when we outgrow that house or when we have another opportunity, then at least I still have money to earn on the back end. Whereas I'd just be throwing away $22.50 a month if I choose to lease.
Yeah.
Lots of factors in play here.
Oh yeah, and the biggest thing I can tell you is, and this is a hard thing, because I think, we're a generation where I'd love to just go to a website and be able to type in my personal numbers, hey, this is how much money I earn, this is how much debt I have, this is how much cash I have on hand, and be able for it to spit out exactly what, and be able to type in this is the kind of house I'm interested in, and it will tell me exactly what my monthly payment's going to be. But the truth of the matter is that While it's hard, you're gonna have to talk to a human being. There's no way around it. Okay, we've both tried. Okay, the only way to make this all work and to find that plan that is successful for you is to go and talk to a lender. Okay, and that's where we recommend coming to us. Okay, and getting our lender's information. Our lender's the one who sat down with both of us and has gone through this whole process. You know, and they create an individualized, tailored report and can show us an options that will detail for us how we're going to be successful.
Yeah, and we'll be sure and link Brittany in this video and also give you her contact information, our contact information. But we want to leave you with just like this empowering ideas that it's possible for you. You know, it just takes a little bit of know-how, a little bit of knowledge, and then a lot of openness. So just be real with where you're at, and we would love to help you if you're looking to buy a home here in 2018.
For sure. I was like falling on my toes.
Oh my goodness. Okay, ready?
Yeah.